This is the first recording session in over a year, since we have several babies around. One's upstairs. We've got one on a lap right here. We've got some food, so there's going to be a little bit of background noise to this, and that's just what it's going to be for right now.
Occasional screams, maybe.
That's true. Cassie's been on one recording before. She was back with the anime themes, or openings. Austin, you are new to this recording session. So welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
For those that you don't know, which should be most of you, although you've been technically on this channel before because it's on the Coolio Chicken account. Austin's one of my oldest friends. We've been friends since second grade, and oh god, we're almost 30.
Yeah. Oh no. No, it's exciting to be invited back. Since the channel's really become a little more established, it's nice.
It's still kind of all over the place, but it's whatever. It's always been whatever I wanted to throw onto here, so it still fits that aesthetic. Today we're going to be talking about just kind of first impressions on some animes we're watching. For some of us, it's like one of the ones we're going to be talking about, at least briefly, is One Piece, which I've watched the beginning of, I think, 5 times now. Austin, I don't know how many times you've watched the beginning of it. I assume at least 3.
Yeah, it's been more than that now. I just appreciate that you've gone back and forth and watched it so many times, because I still remember the moment that I surpassed where I had ever gone in that one.
Because you started with the 4Kids version back on... Was it on Toonami or like Maguzi or whatever it was?
Whatever it was.
I remember Toonami.
Yeah, it must have been Toonami back in the day. No, I remember.
Which, Austin's a little bit of a celebrity. He had a character that almost made it onto Maguzi.
Oh god, yeah.
I think you made it to the top 10.
So just really briefly, really. A ways away, there was like a Design Your Monster contest for that, and I threw together some bullshit. And I can swear on this, right?
That's fine.
Okay. I threw together some bullshit character that I was like, but I was really meticulous about it when I was a kid. I was like, okay, none of these monsters have like 4 eyes. None of them are this color. None, all that stuff. And I did it in a way that I was like, okay, this is gonna be it. And it got into the top 10, and then it was a voting thing at that point. But some idiot in the egg, they picked him over. But that aside, and my eternal shame for not getting that honor of being
on Maguzi.
On Maguzi,
the thing everybody remembers.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I can't even find it online now, so it doesn't even matter anymore. But that being said, I think that One Piece 4Kids was either on Maguzi or it was on Toonami. Either way, that was how I started. I got hooked by the theme song. I think the first couple episodes I saw was in Usopp's Village, which I know we won't be talking about today, but I thought Captain Kuro was a badass. And then that kind of led me to kind of continue the story there. But anyway, we can get into that more later when you get into it.
Yeah, I know you've seen through Captain Kuro, Cassie, because that's the cat captain.
Yeah, no, I just remembered Captain Morgan's son's chin.
Oh, El Meppo.
El Meppo's chin is rough.
So you have to see it the rest of the series.
Yeah.
He doesn't, no character ever goes away. I'm going to go through this episode not giving away anything.
At least nothing that we haven't already seen.
But I will say that always expect characters to come back and to continue to be relevant. So enjoy the chin.
It's just so poorly drawn. And, you see it from the side, you're like, it's not that bad. And then you look at it head on, and you're like, that is just a nutsack on a man's face.
And I watched One Piece a little bit when it was still the 4Kids dub. I've watched the beginning of the Funimation dub probably 3 times now. And I don't know if I've ever watched it in Japanese, but I've read a little bit of the manga. Actually, I've read more of the manga than I have gotten through anime. Because I've gotten into Skype yet into the manga. But not... I've only gotten through Alabasta in the anime.
Okay.
But right now we're going to talk about... Cassie and I just watched the first 2 episodes. So we get the introduction of Luffy bursting through the barrels. Gotta say... At this point in time, not a fan of Kobe. I know Kobe sticks around. Reading the manga, the manga handles one thing better, definitely, for sure, than the anime does. The anime pulls, little episodes of, Buggy the Clown as like the little like head with hands and feet walking around doing his adventures. In the manga, it's handled like a splash page at the beginning of the chapter, so you get a piece at the beginning of every chapter. Like there's not even like dialogue, I think.
No, not usually.
And I think that's handled very nicely because you get just this little bit so you still get the story filled in, but you're still getting your main story. Whereas the anime is just like, all right, we're gonna combine all that, make an episode out of it, and then we're moving on.
Yeah, which you're right. That is a great job from the anime's perspective. I'll say they aren't super consistent with that. So the Buggy thing is awesome because I feel the same way with other big.
I think that's true about the Buggy one. But there's one with Kobe and Helmeppo later that I remember not really liking that episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one, and then there's one, and that one's really relevant later. So if you do watch that again, there's another one. That's kind of post Skypia. And do you remember the villain in Skypia? Did you ever get to him?
He summons lightning, doesn't he?
Yeah. His cover story is covered in the beginning of chapters, and it's extremely. Oh, thank you. It's extremely relevant to the story of One Piece, but they never cover it in the anime. So
really,
it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, when you get to that point, we'll kind of revisit and talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
Sure.
I will say One Piece is kind of interesting because it does a couple of things. It opens up and it's very high energy right out the bat. There's a lot of energy to it. That could be really off-putting to some people.
Yeah.
Because some people like a slower start to things. But and some of the characters, like you were talking about, Kobe, that's his name? Kobe. Yep. They get a little bit whiny.
He's a whiny little shit. Yeah.
Come on.
And Usopp. we got to throw his name in there.
Never. Yeah, like to be fair, we only watched the first 2 episodes last night, but we've also seen past that, so we can talk a little bit more about One Piece than like we've seen before.
Of course.
Usopp is one of those characters that everybody, fans of One Piece, will say, "Oh, he gets better. He gets better." But I've never gotten to a point in One Piece, and granted, only to Skypia, which in the grand scheme of things is not very far.
Yeah.
Because they're past episode 1000 now.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about a little bit because I saw for episode 1000 they redid the We Are intro.
I actually haven't seen that. No.
I feel like maybe there's some spoilers in there, but for somebody who's unfamiliar with it, it doesn't feel like spoilers. It's just like, oh, there's some characters I don't know, and that's it.
Definitely.
But it was really cool to see them revisit We Are, because that was in our top 10 anime openings.
That's a great. I mean, that one is.
It didn't make it super high in the top 10, but the fact they even made it into our top 10.
Hey, if I was there, I would have fought.
Maybe gotten a little bit higher, but probably not a lot higher.
My chin is being eaten.
There's a baby here eating Cassie's chip.
Yes, it is. It is quite the experience.
But yeah, at the beginning of One Piece, we get the introduction of Luffy. A little bit of an introduction of Nami, though she's not. You don't know who she is yet.
Yeah, they don't really talk about her.
And then you get the introduction of Zoro as well, who is one of the few characters in anime that is considered to be like one of like the cool characters. Like you're supposed to think this guy is cool.
Yep.
That I actually kind of like.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I like the cool guy.
Yeah.
But I think they handle Zoro very well.
Well, they do a good job of. So when I think of like quintessential cool guys in anime, I think of people like Sasuke. I think of people like
there's Vaughn in Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah, and then there's the guy. Even I forgot his name. In Rashomon, the main character, Guts from Berserk. Right, like these are characters with a really tough.
Like Vegeta or Trunks in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, they're really tough exteriors, and it takes a while to chip away at like kind of the faults that they have and things like that.
They go right into it with Zoro.
I feel like that's
first introduction. You see a little glimpse of his past. You see the girl.
Yep.
Whose name was escaping me. Yeah. Yep. But you automatically know there is more to this character than him being the cool guy with swords.
Exactly, and I feel like that's one of the strengths that One Piece does with most characters, oftentimes. But yeah, in Zoro's case,
Usopp even has a good backstory. I just don't like Usopp. And I'm not a huge fan of Nami, to be honest, but she also has a good backstory.
Yeah. Nami's is great with Belmare, but that's a whole other talk.
We'll get there eventually. But I do think, well, we're only 2 episodes in, and I like a little bit of the arc gets summed up in the next bit. I think Zoro gets out of his bindings and fights, or they all fight Captain Morgan in the next episode. Like a lot of stuff happens very quickly at the beginning of One Piece before until they hit Buggy and then things start to kind of like expand out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Morgan might be the most hateable person I've ever met.
He's pretty bad.
He's awful. Like, I can't even... there's no likable quality about that man.
No. A lot of the other villains are fun. Captain Morgan's just mean to be mean.
Yeah.
Even the woman captain in the first episode is Alvida. She's at least funny.
Yeah.
In some of her characterization.
He literally told his son, he's like, you're not worth beating.
Oh, yeah. And to be fair, I feel like that's to humanize Helmeppo, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is awful until that moment. But I think, like, basically One Piece is just... I think it's very fun. I've given it many looks at through the years, and every time it's been worth it. It's just finding the time to actually sit and
It's very
watch
true.
it.
And it's so interesting because... when I talk with you and we talked about reaching Alabasta, and even Skypiea to some extent, but like, let's say just considering the anime Alabasta, like that is just the introduction of One Piece at this point. Like,
yeah, they're not very far into
all of the lore of the world
that
that like makes it as enriched as like, let's say like a series like Harry Potter, like right, all that, like all of the background information and all of the characters that matter are not even introduced yet, and most of the character arcs for the Straw Hats, outside of your Sanji, your Nami,
I love Sanji.
Right?
Sanji is probably my favorite character, at least to what I've seen in One Piece.
And I'll say even some of those characters have partial character arcs before, like you get the full character picture a couple hundred episodes later, and it really is night and day the difference that you have in your head of these characters. Even 100 or 200 episodes after Skypiea ends, which I know is a shit ton of episodes, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's going to be really exciting to have these continued conversations going forward.
I will say one thing about Luffy, just knowing a little bit more about his character. We talked about how, like, everyone is very high energy and it can be a little overwhelming. Luffy can be very serious at the appropriate moments, and it's very relieving. It's not this, like, silly... ridiculous character in a like very serious moment, and you're like, please, for the love of God.
And they established that in the first episode when he was talking about, I'm going after the One Piece, and Kobe's like, what? That's impossible. He said, I'm not going after it just willy-nilly. Like, that is what I want in life. I'm going to be king of the pirates, and if I'm not, it's because I was killed along the way.
Yeah.
If I die, I die is his exact quote.
And you see it when he punches Helmeppo too, because he threatened to kill Zoro before he finished out his challenge, and he was like, "That's dishonorable."
Yeah. And then you fast forward to things like these are things you've seen, but like in Nami's village when he goes against, or Nami asks for help, and he puts the straw hat on her head, and he kind of looks up and he has that serious deadpan face. Like, those moments don't go away. Though I will say, there's some really exciting new things that have just happened, like recently, which obviously I won't get into.
Right.
But like, they really shake the foundation of like the series and Luffy, and it's just going to be really fun to revisit this recording once you've caught up a little bit.
Definitely. Is there any kind of like final thoughts we want to talk about One Piece before we kind of move on to our next?
I don't think so. Like I said, just excited to kind of keep revisiting and talking about these things as we develop and how things change. But no, it was fun to talk about.
Yeah, the plan is to revisit these basically after every arc. So we'll revisit this at the end of East Blue, which I believe is a little after Arlong.
Yep. Though, actually, we could even do End Grand Line.
Yeah,
it's not End Grand Line. You're right. I guess End East Blue, because they do Log Town. They go up the reverse mountain, and then we would do it then. Yeah.
In the manga, basically, it's Arlong. Then there's I think 1 or 2 chapters, and they go up the mountain.
Those 1 or 2 chapters really matter.
They do, but in the anime, there's a big filler arc, like story of like the last dragon that amounts to nothing.
Please refer to the One Piece filler chart while you're watching through, so you don't get stuck in those.
I have in the past.
Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. Don't bloat the series more than that Funimation already has.
Well, I mean, it's not even just Funimation. It's the Japanese anime in general, because Funimation is literally just dubbing what's already there.
Yeah. Well, but I will say the pacing of the anime coming out, or the manga coming out too slow is the reason that Funimation needs to add extra episodes that slow the series down. And so you'll get a chapter in like 2 to 3 episodes sometimes when it should be a 1-to-1, so anyway.
And last time I looked at this, there was a website I was using that had filler, and some of it had like even some things that said like partial filler.
Yep.
Where like there are little bits from the manga in here that we have to throw in. And we'll probably watch those.
Yeah.
But
you should definitely
probably
watch
skip
those.
that last dragon bit after.
Skip anything that says filler entirely.
Full filler.
Just skip that. Yeah.
Which I think there's one bit where you recommended I might watch, which was right after Nico Robin is introduced, and we'll figure some of that out as we get along.
Yeah, I think the big piece of filler is right after Skypiea, and Nico Robin is introduced at that point. But yeah, like, don't skip that. But we'll, like you said, we'll talk about that later.
We've got to get through another full arc before that.
Yep.
So, Cassie and I recently watched Demon Slayer. She had already seen it once. And this is only through where, like, the movie / like, the train arc hits. Austin, I don't know if you've seen much of Demon Slayer.
I've only seen the first, I think, 2 or 3 episodes of it. And I was impressed, for the most part.
It's very visually striking.
It was. They spent a lot of money on their budget for animation, like, the movements of the characters, and I really liked the sister-brother dynamic that they had,
And they keep that going really strong.
That's
very
good.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
And just the art in general, we talk about it a lot in the anime openings, but because it's in that opening, it's not a spoiler or anything. I don't know if you've gotten this far. Like, his sword power is like the water, where it basically looks like that famous Japanese painting of the waves.
Oh, yeah.
Every time he swings it.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's beautiful. It's great. I will say that Demon Slayer's pacing is a little odd, and I don't know if that's attributed to the manga or what it is, because I know the manga's already over, but there's a lot of kind of time that skips over, which is both appreciated and not at the same time.
Right, it's like 2 years in those first
months will pass, or even like a year will pass, and it's like nothing, which is fair. In real life, you might go that long without something happening.
And it's like through the training sequences.
Yeah, so it's kind of appreciated, but a lot of animes would handle that with like some sort of interesting, maybe partial filler to like fill in that little bit.
I almost appreciate that they don't, though, because it'd be weird trying to fill those without introducing new characters, and that might feel out of place.
To some extent. I don't know. It was on my mind as I was watching. I didn't hate it, but I didn't, like, it was definitely noticeable.
Yeah.
It'd be like, within an episode, like, months will have passed. It's like,
Interesting.
oh.
I do typically like in shows when they show what happens within those months rather than skipping straight ahead. But
So when they do that, it's when he's training to become a Slayer. So it's not like there's a lot of eventful things happening.
yeah,
It is
And
always...
it's like repetitive. Yeah. You know what's happening in those months because he's
like
doing
a
the
training
same thing
montage
in
sort
and
of thing.
out every day.
And,
Yeah.
like, it happens a second time later, which I didn't mind it as much then. It made sense to kind of speed through some of that.
Right.
But when I then found out, like, 3 months had passed, I was like, whoa. It's more noticeable at the beginning when he's getting, like, his first training.
And there's a weird thing where, like, they walk everywhere. Everything is by foot. It's not like they're taking day trips places. So it takes time to do everything. I think you kind of learn that, like, 3 months had passed when they're healing from that big battle that they went through.
So, Austin, if you haven't watched it, I would maybe recommend at least giving it a little bit more.
I should.
If you don't, it's good. It's a good shonen anime.
Yeah.
I do believe it is a little overhyped, but I very much enjoyed it.
I mean, that sounds about right. I've been trying to stay up to date with ones people recommend, and that one was one that I was interested in. But yeah, I just need to watch it. I have a Crunchyroll subscription, so I have no issues with that. Especially now that you're watching JoJo and that you're watching One Piece again, I have incentive to watch because it's a trade-off.
Yeah. Which
maybe
I think,
Hunter x Hunter someday too. If
maybe. There are a few I want to get to. A couple of them are shorter. Like, I do want to hit Death Note at some point because I've never seen it. Cassie's seen it.
Yeah.
I will say, the one thing about Demon Slayer is they get some really quirky characters in there,
Ooh.
and you're
Are you
like,
talking about the blonde guy?
no, that guy,
Both of them.
Oh,
There's
okay.
the blonde guy and
Boarhead.
the boarhead guy, and I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
remember. I can't remember either of their names, but they're both rough.
Well, I was more referring to the Flame Hashira, which I won't go into
Oh,
too much
okay.
detail on because it's a spoiler if I do.
There are more side like there's the main two, which are God. This is a show.
Tanjiro and
His sister.
No.
Yeah, I honestly, it's hard for me to remember their names for some reason.
I can remember them separately. I can never remember them at the same time.
But they're very good characters.
Yeah.
Then you get your next side cast.
Yeah.
And they're not great. I have not. They have their individual moments where
Yeah.
they have greatness, but at least at the point where the anime is at, they haven't like really stuck their landing.
Interesting. That makes sense.
And then you get your side characters, which are almost all great.
Yeah.
They have very good peripheral cast.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, which it is nice. Like
are they retained or do they typically kind of
For
come
the-
in and leave?
they
Yes and no.
so like at least at this point to where we've watched, they almost all have kind of weaved in and out.
I would say it's a lot like One Piece, where like you lose a character, a like side character, and then another one comes in,
Yeah.
and then you lose another one, and it kind of weaves in and out.
I see.
Nezuko.
Nezuko.
It's
Nezuko, that's
yeah.
right. And I'll say because I'll always defend One Piece, and it's not like you're, but like all those characters do come back,
Right.
Typically. But and I just was wondering if that was the case with this series.
As of this point, I would say yes.
Okay.
Because it's a
Yeah.
pretty small world they're
Yeah.
kind of traveling. Because for the most part, they are traveling by foot, and there are kind of central locations. So you see some locations revisited,
Yeah.
which
That makes
I feel
sense.
like you don't see in a lot of animes like that.
Uh-uh.
Like obviously in the Dragon Ball world, they fly and teleport everywhere, so you can hit those locations again really easily because you can travel around the world in like minutes.
Yeah.
But that hits a little different.
But you meet a lot of characters, even if you don't see them, they're brought back into focus a lot because they have some sort of outside storyline that you know they're going to bring back in.
Yeah.
Because it's important to the motivations. And there's little details and little things that happen that you're like, man, like, if I knew more about this, I could have seen that coming in theory, but like, they tie everything together really well. Everyone is tied to each other through some loop. And you can tell there are people who know things that other people don't, and like there's just little things that are said that wouldn't be obvious unless you were paying attention, which is always really nice, especially when you're watching through on a rewatch.
Yeah.
But they definitely got some quirky characters that are like side characters, and they do a really good job of like, this guy's really weird, but for some reason I really like him.
Yeah.
But I feel like that sums up kind of our.
Without getting into spoilers, especially for Austin who wants to watch it, because there's some pretty big stuff in there.
Yeah. Next up, you mentioned I just started watching JoJo, which is a big anime for not being that long yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And
Cassie has very limited exposure, but it does not seem to be her cup of tea.
I'm interested in watching it, but it's so strange.
it's
Melodrama seems to be its thing.
I
it's
caught-
so melodramatic.
To be fair, I caught the last like 5 minutes of the first episode, and it was like, what did I walk into, and whose dog just died, literally?
And at
Danny in the oven.
And at that point, the series is not even complicated yet. That's at the end of the first episode, which is basically just like some really horrible person found the Joestar family dying.
Dario Brando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the patriarch of the Joestar family, I'm forgetting his name.
George
right now.
Joestar.
I think so.
Yeah.
He thinks that this horrible person saved him and is not just grave robbing him. So he takes it as like, well, the Joestar family owes me a favor. I'm dying. I'm going to send my son to basically claim their fortune.
Yeah. But it's
And-
a stand-up guy.
Yeah, and honestly, like, and at that point, Dio, the son, is just like, not only am I going to take the fortune, I'm going to ruin Jonathan Joestar's life in the process.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Joestar, or JoJo, is just ripped apart in the first episode.
Yeah.
Right down to Dio stealing his girlfriend's first kiss and then slaps her hard for washing her mouth off because the kiss is deemed to be something to be washed away.
Yeah, that's right. She washed it off in a puddle of dirty water.
God.
Yeah, muddy water.
Wow, unconsensual contact?
Oh,
Exactly.
it's
How dare you not want that?
and
Dio
it
is
is
all about
portrayed as horrible.
Yeah, it's
Dio is a piece of garbage.
Yeah. It is funny. Speaking of villains who have no redeemable qualities, like Dio is certainly one of them.
I was gonna say, I'd like to say this feels like there's a scene in the Avatar where he goes, "That's rough, buddy," and it feels like this whole anime is just, "That's rough, buddy."
And then Jojo actually starts to kind of pick up a bit after he realizes Dio is a piece of garbage.
A
Yeah.
literal thug.
Yeah, a horrible, no redeemable factor villain. Even though they pretend to be brothers around each other for the sake of like face, I feel like more than anything.
The whole football game and
Yeah.
stuff like that, yeah.
Where was confusing going into the second episode and seeing that stuff.
It was
and
very
then you
weird.
see the internal monologues, which I think they actually portray very nicely because the color changes and
So, I mean...
you'll
the
see like
best-
their inner face almost.
I've read... I mean, I'm caught up with the JoJo manga, and I'm caught up with all the anime, and I'll say that, like, by far, the anime just makes it so enjoyable. And that's one of the things that I think is really distinct about JoJo as a series, is, like, watching the anime is just such a delight with the colors, and the poses, like, come to life, because the poses are a big part of it, like, seeing all these melodramatic character poses and stuff.
It's animated very well.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty new still overall.
The anime
Anime?
themselves, yeah, it's within the past 20 years for sure.
Definitely that.
I mean, within the past maybe 10 to 15 even.
I remember it in high school.
So I wasn't introduced to
It
it.
may have been 2011. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
I wasn't introduced to it before, like maybe within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That sounds about right now.
Yeah.
But I avoided this series for the longest time because the first exposure I had to this was a vampire squirrel devouring like a Nazi soldier, and I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me.
That's funny.
Might be for me.
I know that exact episode.
And I'm interested to kind of see like where that falls into because like it's obviously like at least
A vampire squirrel that was once a hand, I think.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So like vampires are a part of this series,
For a
which
while.
you wouldn't necessarily know at the very start. It takes until I think the end of episode 2 for the first like vampire thing to kind of happen.
Yeah.
And it's like the mask gets put on somebody and then the blood gets smeared and then it attacks Dio. And I think from there Dio figures out like, oh, okay, I can use this.
Yeah.
What did I just miss?
I'll say that the series, I mean, one of the best parts about it is that it's ever changing and always evolving. So, you know, I mean, obviously I won't really go into what that means, but I think it's going to be really exciting I said this exact same sentence about One Piece, but as we go through to keep revisiting, especially these arcs, because they're all so distinctly different, and at a number of times they, like, the author, Araki, decides to entirely change the premise of what's going on in a very believable way, and you know it'll be fun to talk about that when we get there.
One of the things I know about JoJo that I really liked that was actually one of the deciding factors, like, okay, I'll give this a chance. Because in a lot of shonens, I don't like power scaling.
Yeah.
Including in Dragon Ball Z. Like, I love Dragon Ball and that stuff, but eventually, like, if you look at the start of Dragon Ball, when Goku's just a kid and, like, he's having a hard time breaking a rock.
Yeah.
And now in Dragon Ball Super, they're literally fighting gods. Because you have to keep finding new enemies for Goku to fight.
Yeah.
Power scaling like that gets really difficult after a while.
It's true.
What I like about JoJo is, if I'm not mistaken, every season, like story arc, is a new JoJo.
Yep.
So you
that's
can
correct.
reset the power scaling. Because I've heard like sometimes they are like quote unquote fighting gods or something, but another one you might be fighting like gangs on the street. they can do whatever they want because everyone is different.
It's so true, and it's funny that you say that because I think one of the nice things about JoJo, other than that point that you just brought up, is that they change the pace and the feeling of each arc as well. So one is, like a slice of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's people just like going to high school and like going home. And, it's just about, like, these day-to-day struggles. Like you said, running into street thugs,
Mm-hmm.
like, things like that. And then another one is, like, you're fighting, some leader of some country. And, like, it's, like, a much bigger scale thing. But at the same time, both feel just equally as stressful and dramatic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's pretty cool about the series. And also something like, speaking of breaking the mold, and just because I want to throw in another, nod to it, is Hunter x Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
We won't go into it, but the fact that they have a character that starts out with a couple of like extra like strengths compared to other maybe standard people.
Sure.
But like it becomes apparent over the course of the show or the manga that like this character that you've grown to believe in has so many flaws that are just insurmountable. Mm-hmm. That like it's not like the classic like growing and growing type of like shonen trope that you have with Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and in One Piece to some extent.
Yeah.
That we can talk about that more later on. It's so I'm like, looking forward to when you watch that one eventually.
Mm-hmm.
A lot on your plate for a while.
Right.
And so far with Demon Slayer, it's kind of the same thing where like he needs help from other people.
Definitely.
He's not perfect. He gets injured. He gets hurt. He gets knocked down.
There are very clearly people stronger
Yeah.
than him at this point.
Right.
And
And
but
even
you
the
can see
strongest
his
people
progression. Like he overcomes stuff that other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that like somebody stronger isn't there that wouldn't have just like beaten the villain anyway because they were already stronger.
Right. And it's not even necessarily always physical. Sometimes it's like actual just
Yeah.
pedal to the metal, being able to commit to it.
Yep.
And like the last anime that Cassie and I gave a little bit of attention to a couple days ago, we watched the very beginning of Inuyasha, which I don't know. There's a lot of hype around this series, like from the past, and it was one of those like Adult Swim, Toonami, late night animes that I'm sure a lot of kids probably like really enjoyed watching.
Definitely.
And I will say this about it. In its defense, we watched a dubbed version, and the dub was not good. Oof, it was really bad.
I was falling asleep.
Oh no.
It was not like the acting was not believable. The few people that seemed like they were trying were annoying.
Yeah.
So I'll give it, maybe in Japanese it's a little better. But it definitely seemed like I can see a lot of people like in their late teens or even up to their 30s, especially people who want their fox boy demon boyfriend. I can see where that would appeal. There's a little bit of that mysticism demon side of things that you might see in kind of a Miyazaki film to some extent.
It feels like Naruto for like teenage girls.
A little bit. And I truly believe there's probably something likable in that series. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lasted so long.
I'm sure like the more you get into it, the more it picks up. It's just kind of a slow start.
I will tell you, the beginning did not grip me on that one. But maybe at some point I'll give it a little bit more attention, give it a little bit more of a chance. But for now, I think Cassie, like we've picked, we're gonna go through One Piece.
Yeah.
I'm gonna still kind of work my way through JoJo. Austin, it sounds like maybe you'll kind of look at Demon Slayer a little bit. Have you ever seen Yu Yu Hakusho?
I had. So I read a lot of the manga because it's the same author as Hunter x Hunter, and so I was trying to kind of. I did all Hunter, and then I went back to Yu Yu after that.
Because I love Yu Yu Hakusho. That's one of my favorite animes.
Oh, really?
Of the few I've seen.
Yeah.
To be fair.
It's the same author, and so like when I was watching the anime, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And then I went back and I was reading the manga of Yu Yu Hakusho because I really wanted to hear about the elder and the younger Tagashi? No, it's their last... Taguro.
Yeah, the Taguro brothers.
Yeah, and I really was enjoying that. I made it to the stadium tournament
the
arc.
dark tournament. That's where a lot of people kind of make it.
Yeah.
And the first 2 times I watched Yu Yu Hakusho, that's where I made it and stopped after that arc ended.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Kendall really wanted me to finish the 3rd arc. He was like, watch it. And he never explained why. And eventually he was like, yeah, if you liked that was basically a JoJo arc.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said the 3rd arc is very JoJo.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
So I would definitely recommend at least like getting to the 3rd arc. The 4th and final major arc in Yu Yu Hakusho is interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't... Either there was no manga at that point, like it just kind of carried on, or the manga was different or something. It's interesting, but I could see people not liking that bit, and I didn't like it as much. Basically, arc 1 through like 3, the big ones are probably the best parts of Yu Yu Hakusho.
Okay, yeah, I can keep watching reading past there probably.
I'm trying to remember what the 3rd arc is called.
What's the friend's name? The redhead.
Kuwabara.
Kuwabara.
And his Yukina and the headband of love.
I just need you to know that I was once in a subway in Kent and saw a man who I swear to God could have been a real life Kuwabara.
Are we talking about the guy with the poofy hair?
Yeah.
He doesn't have some of the tropes, but he's the Usopp of that series.
He is a bit. I like Kuwabara better than I understand.
I like that Usopp is so shitty. That he can only, he's just this whiny, sniveling ass, and he can only improve. Kuwabara, they try to give him that same Zoro tough guy trope.
Yeah,
but he's also shitty.
He's
he
also
can't really
kind
do
of
much,
joke,
and he has this dumb sword that doesn't do anything. And so I guess when him as a character, I'm like, he just doesn't. And so I thought he was gonna die. And the tournament
he's actually not in. I can't remember. He's in the 3rd arc, but I don't think it's that much, and he's like not in the 4th arc at all.
Oh, gotcha.
Whereas like Hiei is a very big part of most of the series, the one with the 3rd eye.
Yeah.
And Kurama, the again kind of fox boy, which is revealed in the Dark Tournament.
Yeah.
But
I remember that. No.
He stays around for a while too. After a while, like Kuwabara just gets like outclassed because they kind of explain sense. Like. Ghost energy, that spirit human energy is powerful, but it's almost always outclassed by like a demon energy.
Yeah.
So eventually Kuwabara is just irrelevant, which I'm always a little sad when power scaling makes people irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like when they
all Dragon Ball Z
throw Piccolo out.
Yeah.
He was the last one to hang on, and eventually they were like, if you're a Saiyan, you matter. If you're not, you don't.
Yeah.
And they always try to kind of like sprinkle him back in, but it's never quite enough.
That's one of the nice things about circling back to One Piece specifically is like because they have they have multiple power systems, none of which are like calculated like, power scaling in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
One of which is devil fruits. There's always like a rock, paper, scissors thing that goes along with devil fruits, which adds a lot of complexity to the series. Yeah. And then they add on top of that a different type of system later on, which I won't talk about now.
One of my favorite moments in the manga, you told me to watch the fight, but I never did, is like, you have this moment of like, what would a rubber fruit do against a spring fruit? That sounds like it'd be a really interesting matchup. And Luffy just like one punches out this guy.
Oh, God. I can't wait till you get to that.
And like you told me to watch it, and I just never did. And
okay.
But even in the manga, it's just like
it looks so good.
He just literally, it's like one frame of Luffy's like fist down toward the ground, and the guy's face just planted into it. God. And it's just like it seems like it's gonna be this big buildup, but at this point, Luffy's so. Like, I'm not overpowered because we get him to Skypia, and, like, he's, again, like, outclassed by some things. But there are people who think just because they have a devil fruit, they're so badass. Yep. But one punch, and he's out.
Right? Just like having, a bunch of swag and a devil fruit doesn't make you, hot shit.
Yeah.
And, that was one of the many examples down the road where that's, like, very much the case. And I'm so excited for when because that was right before Skypia, like you said. When you watch Skypia, when you get past that, you're right into Water 7 and Enies Lobby, and those are two of my all-time favorite arcs. Like, the 100 episodes after what you've already seen, and I'm very excited to talk about those when you eventually get there.
Yeah.
You know, take your time, of course. We have a number of episodes to record between now and then.
Truly. But I think that's kind of a good place to wrap things up. We've actually covered a few more animes than I expected to.
Yeah, quite a few.
So definitely on this channel, look out for. There's probably going to be a quick JoJo season 1 review because it's only 10 episodes, actually coming up here pretty quick. Then season 2's only like 16 more episodes after that, so we'll probably hit that pretty quick as well. Kendall should be back on those, which I'm excited for because he's a huge JoJo fan. One Piece, we'll probably get a couple early on, but those will take a little longer. Then we're just probably going to put out some supplementary videos along the way. We've got a couple planned. I don't know if we're going to get to recording them today or not. It kind of depends. But yeah, we're on the way. The channel is filled with audio recordings again, and it's good to see. To coin an old phrase that Kendall and I borrowed, and Isaac, this is fine.